Freeze. Don't you dare move a step further. That was the first thing I heard that morning, sharp cold like a blade cutting through the hum of a busy federal lobby. And it wasn't directed at some random intruder. It was aimed right at me. I had walked into that marble-floored building dressed like any other professional woman in Atlanta, a charcoal blazer, low heels, hair pulled back in a neat bun. Nothing flashy, nothing threatening. But to Officer Richard Callahan, the 52-year-old security guard at the checkpoint, I was a problem. A black woman in a place he didn't think I belonged. His pale eyes locked on me with suspicion the second I crossed the revolving door, and in that instant, I knew this day wasn't going to be routine. ID, he barked. I reached into my purse, pulled out the card the agency had spent weeks perfecting. He snatched it from my hand, glanced at it for maybe 3 seconds, then smirked and let it fall to the floor. Pick it up, he said. Now most people would have reacted, argued, cursed him out, stormed off. But I couldn't, because I wasn't who he thought I was. The name on that badge wasn't mine. I was undercover here to expose a traitor leaking secrets inside this very building. One wrong move and 3 months of planning would evaporate. So I bent down, picked it up slow like none of it touched me even though my chest was burning. Richard wasn't finished. He pointed to the scratched plastic table near his station. Empty your purse. Everything. I glanced over. White employees were strolling through the metal detector without even opening their briefcases. One waved his badge like a VIP pass at a nightclub. A woman in a red dress walked straight through with her jewelry on. Nobody stopped them. Nobody humiliated them. But me. He wanted every last item laid out like I was some kind of criminal. I set things down carefully. Wallet, lipstick, tissues, keys. My hands were steady, but inside I felt that old sting, the one I'd carried since I was a little girl standing outside a federal building in Birmingham, begging someone to listen about my father's suspicious death. Back then, the guard on duty looked at our skin color and decided our pain didn't matter. That day, I swore if I ever got the chance, I'd hold the kind of power nobody could use against me again. Richard leaned close, voice dropping. One word from me, and you could vanish without a trace. He thought he was terrifying me. He had no idea I'd built a career on making people vanish, not the other way around. Just then, Agent Karen Willis, a seasoned investigator, walked out of the elevators. She saw me, saw the spread of my belongings on that table, and asked evenly, Routine screening, Officer Callahan. His shoulders tightened. Yes, ma'am, just standard procedure. But everyone in that lobby knew it wasn't standard. Karen gave me a look, a subtle flicker in her eyes that said she was assessing, calculating. I extended my hand. Agent Dana Brooks, reporting for assignment. She shook it firmly, then turned to Richard. Finish up so she can get to work. Director Monroe is expecting her. He swallowed hard. The director's name still carried weight, even for a bitter man in a gray uniform. I thought that was the end of it. But as Karen and I started toward the elevators, Richard called out under his breath. This isn't over. People like you always think you can just waltz in and take what doesn't belong to you. His words cut sharper than the fire alarm that suddenly blared overhead, red lights flashing across the marble floor. The building began to evacuate people streaming towards stairwells. But Richard grabbed my arm tight enough to bruise. Not so fast. Suspicious individuals stay with me until cleared. Karen ordered him to release me, but he stood his ground, hiding behind protocols. Soon it was just the two of us in that cavernous lobby, alarms wailing, lights painting everything in red. He stepped closer, hand hovering near his baton. On your knees. Apologize for disrespecting this uniform. His breath reeked of stale coffee, his eyes glittering with 15 years of resentment. For a split second, I measured the angle of his wrist, the distance to my holster, the blind spots of the cameras. I could have dropped him in 3 moves, but blowing my cover now meant the mole would slip away forever. Then something caught my eye, a photograph that had fallen from his desk during the chaos. A little girl, maybe 8, with his pale eyes and a bright smile. "You have a daughter," I said softly. His grip on the baton faltered. "Don't you dare talk about her," he snapped. But I pressed gently. "What's her name?" "Against his will," he whispered. "Emily." That was the crack in his armor. I told him about my own father, a decorated officer, who died because someone like him refused to listen. How racism didn't just kill dreams, it killed soldiers. His baton clattered to the floor. For the first time, he looked at me not as an intruder, but as someone who carried loss just like him. Later that day in the cafeteria, he surprised me. He asked to sit. He pulled out a peanut butter and jelly sandwich from a brown bag, hand shaking. "I wanted to apologize," he muttered. And for the first time, I saw the man beneath the uniform, divorced, broke, angry at himself more than the world. He showed me pictures of Emily, her drawings, her smile, and I found myself caring more than I should have. For a moment, we weren't guard and intruder. We were just two broken people sharing lunch. He asked why I hadn't looked scared when he threatened me. I told him the truth, or at least part of it, that my father made sure I'd never be helpless. And Richard, he nodded like he finally understood. But just when I thought maybe, just maybe he could change the ground, shifted again. Karen introduced me later that afternoon to the real agent Dana Brooks, freshly back from assignment. My cover shattered in an instant. Richard's face turned from hope to betrayal in seconds flat. "You lied to me," he said, his voice cracking. "Everything you told me. Was it real?" I told him my father's story was real, that my pain was real. But all he heard was that I'd played him. He shouted for my arrest, demanded charges. The look he gave me as he walked away, it wasn't hatred anymore. It was worse. Disappointment. That night alone in his apartment above a greasy diner, Richard stared at his daughter's drawing My Hero Daddy and felt like a fraud. But Agent Willis paid him a visit. She showed him my real file, my father's obituary, the records of the ambush my dad tried to prevent. She told him she'd seen me forget my cover around him, that what I'd shared wasn't manipulation, it was human. And slowly, Richard began to understand. The next day, he found me in the park. Civilian clothes, nervous, holding a small gift bag. Inside was Emily's drawing, now framed. He said quietly, "She wrote her hero report about you." I almost cried. "I can't accept this. I'm not who she thinks I am." But Richard shook his head. "Aren't you? You protect people, even people like me who didn't deserve it. You showed me I could be better. That's who I want her to look up to." I agreed to dinner. Just grilled cheese and tomato soup. Emily called it hero food. And as we walked through the park, hand in hand, I realized sometimes the most dangerous missions aren't the ones in enemy territory. They're the ones where you let yourself care, where you risk your heart. And maybe, just maybe, a bitter guard and an undercover operative could both learn what it meant to start over. But here's the part I still wrestle with. Was I right to open up to him knowing it could compromise the mission? Was he right to eventually trust me? Even after all the lies, can trust survive when it's born in deception? That's what I want to know from you. If someone who once humiliated you later showed they could change, would you forgive them? Or is betrayal unforgivable no matter the reason? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Let's talk about justice, prejudice, and whether people really can change. And if this story made you feel something, hit that like button, share it with a friend, and subscribe for more stories that remind us the fight for dignity never ends.